The stranger in my living room was measuring the stained glass window when I came home from my medical appointment. He did not look surprised to see me. Lauren stood in my kitchen photographing the countertops. My son Adrian was on the front porch speaking to a real estate agent beside a folded sign that read, "Coming soon." No one had asked whether I wanted to sell my house. "Mom," Adrian said as though I had arrived early to a meeting he had arranged for me, "the private preview is Saturday." I looked past him into the room Peter and I had repaired after buying the house in Fernwood 28 years earlier. Small paper labels had been attached to almost everything. Keep, sell, donate. The wooden chair my late husband had built with his own hands carried a red donate sticker across the back. I removed it slowly and folded it into my coat pocket. Lauren lowered her camera. "We are only preparing options," she said. She was 38 and worked in home staging, so she could make a decision sound like decoration. "We found a condominium that will be much easier for you. 1 bedroom, secure entrance, no garden maintenance. I have not agreed to move," I said. Adrian sighed. At 41, he managed construction projects and spoke to me the way he spoke to subcontractors who had delayed a schedule. We have discussed this for months. We had discussed replacing the roof. We had discussed the rising cost of insurance. We had never discussed selling the house. He called it a family asset and said it no longer made sense for one widow to occupy 2 floors. Lauren added that simplifying the next stage of my life was not the same as taking my home away. The agent stepped inside and asked who would sign the ownership documents if the preview produced an offer. Adrian answered before I could. "I handle the property decisions for my mother." I looked at my son. He did not look away. That was when I understood this was not an idea he had mentioned too early. It was a plan already in motion. I walked through the dining room and opened the wooden cabinet where I kept 30 years of mortgage statements, tax receipts, insurance records, and legal papers. The cabinet door was unlocked. Several folders had been moved. The dark blue file containing the title documents was no longer where I had left it. Behind me, Adrian told the agent that my signature would be a formality. I closed the cabinet gently. Adrian had remembered that one day he might inherit the house. He had forgotten whose name was on it today. The dark blue file had not always been hidden behind a cabinet door. For most of my life in Canada, it sat on the dining room shelf where I could reach it without standing on a chair. I came to Victoria from Split in 1994 with Peter, our 9-year-old son, 2 suitcases, and a folder of documents tied with string. I was 36. My English was careful and slow. During the day, I cleaned rooms at a hotel near the Inner Harbor. At night, I studied payroll and bookkeeping at the kitchen table of our rented basement suite. Peter worked in a cabinet shop and came home smelling of cedar dust. 4 years later, we bought the old Craftsman house in Fernwood. The roof leaked near the back stairs. The kitchen cabinets leaned forward. Grass covered most of the garden. We could afford it because no one else wanted the work. Peter repaired the floors and built shelves from salvaged wood. I tracked every mortgage payment, property tax bill, insurance renewal, and repair receipt. Adrian grew up in the bedroom above the porch. When he was 12, he stood on the wooden chair Peter had made and helped paint the hallway. He told me that one day he would buy me a house with no stairs. I laughed because I believed it was a promise of gratitude, not a plan to remove me from the one we already had. 5 years ago, Peter died at 71. After the funeral, I completed the legal paperwork and had the property records updated into my name alone. Adrian drove me to the lawyer's office. He watched me sign. 2 years later, after my hip operation, I allowed him to coordinate repairs and pay selected household bills while I recovered. The document was limited. It gave him permission to help, not authority to replace me. I remembered the lawyer explaining that distinction twice. Back in the dining room, I searched every folder Adrian and Lauren had disturbed. The mortgage discharge was still there. So were the tax receipts and Peter's death certificate. The original title documents had been moved to the bottom drawer beneath old bank statements. I found the dark blue file after 10 minutes. It was not empty. But the copy of the temporary authorization I had signed after surgery was gone. I stood with the file against my chest while voices carried in from the porch. Adrian was telling the agent that I trusted him to manage everything. Lauren said the house would photograph better once my personal items were removed. I closed the drawer without making a sound. They had not only planned where I would live, they had started building the appearance that I had already agreed. The first thing I noticed was that my bedroom no longer looked lived in. Lauren had removed the framed photograph of Peter from the dresser and placed it inside a cardboard box marked personal. My medication tray had disappeared from the bathroom. Two of my winter coats were folded on the bed beside a label that read, storage. In the hallway, family photographs had been replaced with neutral prints of sailboats and pale beaches. The house had not been prepared for my comfort. It had been prepared to look as though I had already left. I took out my phone and photographed every label, every box, and every room they had changed. Lauren watched me from the kitchen doorway. "Those pictures are only for planning," she said. "So are mine," I replied. In the small office beside the dining room, I found a glossy brochure for a one-bedroom condominium near the edge of Victoria. Someone had circled the words, "secure entrance and low maintenance." A handwritten note beside the floor plan read, "Move Katerina first. Stage upper floor. Preview Saturday." Underneath it was a spreadsheet with the estimated sale price of my house. The numbers were divided into 3 columns: my moving costs, the condominium purchase, Adrian's townhouse project. He had already assigned the remaining money to his business before I had agreed to sell a single floorboard. I remembered balancing payroll for more than 200 workers at the ship repair company. Numbers never became honest because someone arranged them neatly. They became honest when the source and authority matched. I copied every page with my phone. Then I called the real estate agent from the porch, using the number on his card. Owen Clark sounded surprised to hear from me. He said there was no official listing yet because he was still waiting for the registered owner's signature. Adrian had told him I supported the sale and would sign during the private preview. "Did he show you written consent?" I asked. Owen paused. "He showed me an authorization related to property management. That document was limited to repairs and household payments after my surgery." His voice changed. He said he would not proceed without speaking to me directly. I thanked him and ended the call. Adrian had not sold my house. Not yet. But he had built enough of a story around my silence that strangers believed my agreement was only a missing signature. I went inside, closed the office door, and called Priya Sandhu, the real estate lawyer who had handled the title after Peter died. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked one question. "Mrs. Bennett, whose name is currently registered on the land title?" I looked at the dark blue file resting on my desk. "Mine," I said. Priya Sandhu saw me the next morning in her small office near downtown Victoria. I carried the dark blue file under my arm and placed it on the desk between us. She was 52, calm, and precise. She did not tell me what she thought Adrian intended. She asked for dates, documents, and exact words. I showed her the photographs of the labels, the condominium brochure, the townhouse spreadsheet, and the note that said, "Move Katerina first." Then I showed her the authorization I had signed after my hip surgery, using the copy Priya had kept in her records. She read every paragraph before speaking. "This allowed your son to coordinate repairs, receive invoices, and pay selected household expenses while you recovered," she said. "It did not give him authority to sell the property, borrow against it, choose where you live, or direct the proceeds of a sale." She turned her monitor toward me and opened the current land title search. My full name appeared beneath registered owner. Katerina Vukovich Bennett. No second owner. No transfer. No charge connected to Adrian. The mortgage Peter and I had carried for 23 years was listed as discharged. I rested my hand on the dark blue file. For 3 decades, people had treated my habit of keeping records as something old-fashioned. Adrian used to laugh because I kept receipts in envelopes marked by month. Lauren once called my cabinet a paper museum. That morning, every page had a purpose. Priya explained that no lawful sale could proceed without my signature. But she also warned me that pressure could become dangerous when relatives created the appearance of consent. If I signed papers I did not understand, or if professionals believed Adrian spoke for me, correcting the damage could become expensive and slow. I asked her to revoke the temporary authorization immediately. She prepared written notices for Adrian, my bank, and any contractor or professional who had relied on it. I changed the access instructions on the household expense account, and requested that no one accept directions about the property without confirming them with me. Priya asked whether she should contact Owen and cancel Saturday's preview. Not yet, I said. My son deserves one chance to tell me the truth before strangers hear it. She studied me for a moment, then printed 2 certified copies of the land title. I placed one inside the dark blue file. Priya kept the other. When I stood to leave, she said, "Helping someone does not make you their owner." I thought of Adrian telling strangers he handled my property decisions. That evening, I would ask him whether he had confused permission to help his mother with permission to replace her. That evening, I asked Adrian to sit at the dining table where he had once done his schoolwork. I placed the condominium brochure in front of him. Beside it, I set the spreadsheet that divided the future sale of my home into moving costs, a smaller apartment, and capital for his townhouse project. He looked at the pages and did not pretend they belonged to someone else. "The project is short on financing," he said. "Only temporarily. When did my home become your financing plan?" He leaned back in Peter's chair before remembering the red donate label had been removed. "You would still have a place to live. A safer one. No stairs. No roof repairs. This helps everyone." I asked whether helping me required choosing my next home without showing it to me. He said I had become attached to the house because of Peter and was no longer looking at the situation practically. Then he used the sentence I had expected. "Dad always said the house would be mine one day." I folded my hands on the table. "One day is not today." Adrian looked toward the dark blue file beside me. "I am not trying to take anything from you. You told a real estate agent that you control my property decisions. I simplified the explanation so the process could move forward. You showed him an authorization that did not give you the right to sell." His expression changed. Only slightly. Enough. I gave him one chance. Cancel the private preview. Remove every photograph. Return the missing copy of the authorization. Tell Owen and the investors that I had never agreed to sell. If he did those things before morning, I would keep the matter inside the family. Adrian shook his head. He said I was reacting from grief and fear. He said that once I saw the condominium, I would understand. Then Lauren entered, carrying a folder and a silver pen. She placed both beside my hand. Small yellow tabs marked every place where I was expected to sign. "This does not commit you to anything unreasonable," she said. "It only allows us to begin." I looked at my son. He had been offered a clean way to stop. Instead, he had brought me paperwork. I closed the pen and returned it to Lauren. "The preview may still happen," I said. Adrian relaxed too quickly. "Good. Then we can explain everything properly." "Yes," I said. "On Saturday, everyone you invited will hear directly from the registered owner." By 9 o'clock Saturday morning, my house no longer looked like mine. Lauren had placed white flowers on the dining table and removed the framed photograph of Peter from the mantel. The boxes holding my books were hidden in the garage. Adrian wore a dark jacket and stood at the front door, greeting people as though he had already been given the keys. I wore the blue coat Peter had bought me during our last winter together. The dark blue file rested on the table beside my chair. Owen Clark arrived first. 2 local investors followed him. They had been told the property might become part of Adrian's townhouse financing plan. Adrian introduced me as his mother, a widow preparing to move into a smaller condominium. Lauren added that the house had become difficult for me to manage. Neither of them asked me to confirm it. I listened while Adrian described the expected sale price, the renovation potential, and the timeline for possession. He spoke about my garden as developable space. He called my bedroom the primary suite. Every room was translated into value except the life already inside it. Owen looked toward me several times. He had been polite on the telephone, but now he could see that I was not participating in Adrian's presentation. "Mrs. Bennett," he said, "are you comfortable proceeding with this discussion?" Lauren answered before I could. "She is overwhelmed by paperwork. We are trying to make this easy." Then she placed the same folder from Thursday on the table. The yellow tabs were still attached. Adrian moved the silver pen toward me. "You only need to sign the authorization pages," he said. "We can handle the difficult part." I looked at the mantel where Peter's photograph should have been. I looked at the investors standing in the room he had rebuilt with his own hands. Then I looked at my son. What exactly do you believe I am authorizing? He lowered his voice. The listing process, the condominium purchase, the transfer of the remaining funds into a family investment structure. There it was. Not help, not safety. A transfer. Owen stepped closer to the table. I have not prepared a listing agreement because I still require the registered owner's consent, he said. Adrian smiled as if the question had already been settled. That is only a formality. I opened the dark blue file but did not remove the title. Not yet. Lauren reached for the folder again. Katerina, this is becoming uncomfortable for everyone. It became uncomfortable when strangers began measuring my windows, I said. The doorbell rang. Adrian frowned because he was not expecting another guest. I remained seated as Lauren opened the door. Priya Sandhu stood on the porch holding a certified document folder. She looked past Lauren toward the people gathered in my dining room. Before anyone discusses a sale, she said, the registered owner has asked that we review the title. Priya entered the dining room and placed a certified land title search beside the unsigned papers. Adrian stood before she finished opening the folder. This is a family matter, he said. Then the people invited to discuss a property sale should know which family member owns the property, Priya replied. Her voice remained calm. She identified herself as my real estate lawyer and explained that no listing agreement had been signed. No sale had been authorized. No transfer could proceed without the registered owner's consent. Adrian looked at Owen. We already explained that my mother gave me authority to manage the house. Priya removed the temporary authorization from her folder. This document allowed you to coordinate repairs and selected household payments while Mrs. Bennett recovered from surgery. It did not authorize you to list the property, sign for the owner, borrow against the house, select a replacement residence, or direct the proceeds of a sale. Lauren folded her arms. We were trying to protect her from being overwhelmed. I opened the dark blue file and took out my copy of the title. I pushed it across the table toward Adrian. Read the registered owner's name. He did not touch the paper. The two investors looked away from him and toward the document. Owen remained beside the table, waiting. Adrian, I said, read it. His face tightened. Finally, he looked down. Katerina Vukovich Bennett. Priya confirmed that I was the sole registered owner and that the old authorization had been formally revoked. Owen closed his notebook. He said the private preview was over and no marketing could continue without my written direction. One investor asked Adrian why he had presented the house as part of his townhouse financing. Adrian turned toward me. You are humiliating me over a technicality. Ownership is not a technicality. The room became still. I took the folded red label from my coat pocket and placed it beside my name on the title. Donate. You remembered I was your mother when you needed my house, I said. You forgot I was its owner when I said no. Lauren began gathering the unsigned papers. I stopped her and asked Owen to keep a record of what had been presented. He agreed. No one applauded. No one needed to. The facts had already changed the room. Priya handed Adrian a sealed envelope containing the revocation notice and formal instructions regarding the property. He stared at it but did not open it. What is this? He asked. I looked toward the garden suite where he and Lauren had been living while renovating their own home. The first consequence of planning my exit, I said, is that we now need to discuss yours. The envelope gave Adrian and Lauren 30 days to leave the garden suite. Priya had prepared the notice according to the tenancy arrangement they had signed when their own house renovation began. Adrian called it cold. I reminded him that he had planned my move without giving me 1 day to decide. Over the next 3 weeks, the consequences arrived quietly. Owen deleted every photograph connected to the proposed sale and confirmed in writing that no listing had ever been authorized. The coming soon sign disappeared from the porch. My bank removed Adrian's access to the household expense account. Priya reviewed the payments made during the previous year and found several charges connected to his townhouse project, including contractor deposits that had nothing to do with my home. Adrian agreed to repay them after Priya sent the records to him. His business partners learned that the house was not available as collateral or future financing. One of them postponed the project until Adrian could provide a legitimate source of capital. Lauren lost the staging work because there was no property to stage. She packed the white flowers, neutral prints, and sample fabrics into her car without speaking to me. On their final evening in the garden suite, Adrian came to the kitchen alone. He looked tired, but not ruined. I did not want ruin. I wanted truth. I believed I was helping you, he said. Why did helping me require hiding the plan from me? He stared at the table. I thought you would refuse because of Dad. I refused because the house is mine. He said I did not need so much space. I told him the size of my home had never been the issue. The size of his entitlement had. Adrian apologized for going too far. But he still spoke as though the plan itself had been sensible, and only the method had failed. I told him trust would not return, while he continued calling control a form of care. The new boundaries were simple. He would have no key. He would receive no copies of my financial records. He would make no appointments or decisions in my name. Any future conversation about my home would begin with a question, not an announcement. After they left, I changed the locks. Then, I carried Peter's chair back beside the front window and replaced his photograph on the mantel. The room Lauren had used to store staging supplies stood empty. For several days, I passed the open doorway without entering. Then a woman from my Croatian community called. Her daughter had asked her to sign property papers she did not understand. I looked at the empty room and finally knew what it would become. Adrian had tried to plan my exit. Instead, he had shown me where my next beginning should start. 6 months later, the room that once held Lauren's staging supplies had become the second key circle. I kept the name simple because many women who came through the door had spent years being told that someone else should hold the keys, read the papers, or make the decisions. We met twice a month at the long table Peter built from salvaged fur. Priya explained how to organize property records, review authorization forms, and ask questions before signing anything. Owen taught the group how a lawful real estate listing should begin and why no respectable agent should proceed without direct consent from the registered owner. I handled the part I understood best: dates, copies, receipts, names. I showed the women how to create a file that could speak clearly even when family pressure made their own voices shake. The first woman who called me, Marija, was a 63-year-old Croatian widow who had recently moved to Victoria. Her daughter had asked her to sign papers related to a condominium purchase. Marija did not know whether the documents protected her or removed her control. We sat together at my dining table and placed every page in order. She did not sign that day. She asked questions first. Later, she rented the garden suite from me at a fair monthly rate. In spring, we pruned the old plum tree behind the house and planted herbs beside the fence. Peter's chair remained by the front window. His photograph stood again on the mantel. The red donate label stayed inside the dark blue file. I kept it not as evidence of anger, but as a reminder of the day I stopped confusing peace with permission. Adrian began repaying the household funds in regular installments. He did not receive another key. Sometimes he came for coffee on the porch. At first, he still explained his choices. Then he learned to ask about mine. I did not announce forgiveness. Trust was not a door that opened because someone knocked once. It returned through smaller things. Arriving when invited, reading before signing, asking before moving a chair. One afternoon, a woman in our group stared at her land title and admitted she had never noticed which names appeared on it. I placed a labeled folder in front of her and asked her to write her full legal name across the top. Her hand trembled for a moment, then steadied. I understood that feeling. Starting over had not required leaving my home. It had required remaining inside my own life, with my name, my records, and my decisions intact. A key can open a door, but a name on the record reminds the world who has the right to decide when it closes.